El primer presentador o la primera presentadora de hoy se llama Mandy Freitag. Y yo creo que yo voy a dejar a Mandy introducir su propio proyecto.
Okay.
Logo? Can you turn off the two lights there?
Yeah, just flip it up.
Ooh, that sounds cool.
I know, nice, huh? Okay. Good morning, my name is Mandy Freitag, and my Capstone project is the Zoot Suit Riots and the need for Chicano representation through art. When someone with the authority of a teacher, say, describes the world, and you are not in it, there is a moment of psychic disequilibrium, as if you looked into a mirror and saw nothing. This is the feeling of many Chicanos living in the Anglo society. The goal of my project is to understand the history of the Zoot Suit Riots and to recognize the misrepresentation of the Zoot Suit Riots by the media. This constant misrepresentation, along with constant battles for rights, equality, and respect, created the need for a voice. This voice is art. There are many examples of social injustice between the Chicano community and the Anglo community. However, the Zoot Suit Riots are one of the greatest examples of racist and hostile experiences the Chicano community faced. Other examples include immigration and deportation in the 1920s. On the night of June 3rd, 1943, the city of Los Angeles exploded in violence with rioting, also known as the Zoot Suit Riots, between the Pachucos, the Mexican-American youth, and the servicemen who were about to leave to fight in World War II. The predicament began during World War II when large numbers of young men were drafted and unable to fill the farm and factory labor jobs due to the draft. In 1942, the federal government of the United States recognized the shortage of workers and initiated the Emergency Labor Program, though popularly referred to as the Bracero Program. This program allowed 4.6 million Mexican citizens to enter the United States between 1942 and 1947. The Bracero workers brought their families with them and helped to establish the culture of the Pachuco, a youthful individual who is not Mexican and yet not American. The Pachuco represented a Mexican born in the United States but alien to both cultures. Many traits of the Pachuco differed from that of their Mexican parents. For example, the use of language. Pachucos spoke Calo, the barrio language consisting of Spanish, English, Old Spanish, and words adopted by the border Mexicans, also known as slang. Not only was the language of the Pachuco unique, but the attire of the Pachuco was radical and provoking. The style of the Pachuco was the Zoot Suit, which is this. It consisted of baggy pants worn high around the waist with suspenders, tapered at the ankles, baggy in the knees, and a long tailored coat. The Pachucos carried an anti-establishment attitude, refusing to conform and assimilate into the Anglo society, yet without falling back on their Mexican heritage. The Pachucos refused to cower and hide from the Anglo community, and in fact flaunted their appearance and existence to the entire Anglo community with their style of dress, language, and attitude. These were all significant forms of art used to express themselves as their own unique subculture. Luis Valdez, creator of the famous play Zoot Suit, emphasized the identity of the Pachuco, stating that the Pachucos were making some rather important statements. They were standing up to a society that was obviously unjust, obviously racist, and it seemed to me they had some balls. The Pachucos were not afraid. During World War II, the American society labeled the Japanese as a national threat, while the Pachucos of Los Angeles were viewed as the local threat. The view of the Pachuco worsened during the summer of 1942. On the night of August 1st, 1942, Henry Levas and some friends were involved in a fight with another group of Pachucos at the Williams Ranch in Los Angeles, California. The next morning, a man named Jose Diaz was found bleeding and unconscious on a road near a reservoir. The reservoir near the Los Angeles River was dubbed Sleepy Lagoon. Diaz, a 22-year-old about to go off to fight in World War II, later died. Autopsy reports revealed Diaz was drunk at the time of his death and that his death was the result of a blunt head trauma caused by a fracture at the base of his skull. Henry Levas and 24 other Pachucos were arrested, and California's largest mass trial in history began in October of 1942. During the trial, the Los Angeles Police Department Lieutenant Edward Duran Ayers, who was also appointed to the head of the Foreign Relations Bureau, testified as an expert witness for the prosecution. Ayers claimed that people of Mexican descent were biologically prone to violence and crime due to their Oriental Aztec ancestry. Ayers also compared the Anglo to a domestic house cat and the Mexican to a wild cat, suggesting that Mexicans would always retain his wild and violent tendencies, no matter how much education or training he might receive. Over a year and a half later, on October of 1944, the Second District Court of Appeals reversed the charges against the convicted youths of the Sleepy Lagoon murder trial, and all were set free. Henry Levas even walked out of the Los Angeles Hall of Justice wearing a zoot suit. However, beginning on the night of June 3, 1943, prior to the release of the defendants, due to the media representation during and after the trials, which ignited rumors of massive crime waves by Mexican-American zoot-suited youth, a riot broke out in Los Angeles. 11 sailors on shore leave from the United States Navy claimed that they were attacked by a group of Pachucos. Apparently, a group of sailors were passing a group of Pachucos, and one of the Pachucos raised his hand in a manner that offended one of the sailors. A fight broke out, and in the process, the sailor had his jaw broken. He was knocked unconscious, and his friends had to drag him back to the armory for safety. 200 uniformed sailors responded to these claims by entering Mexican-American communities in East Los Angeles. That evening, Pachucos wearing zoot suits were beaten, stripped of their clothes, and left in the streets, humiliated and violated. The following 2 evenings, the riots escalated and continued. Amidst all the crime and violence, not one sailor was arrested and charged for his part in the beatings. 600 Chicano youth were arrested during the riots without cause. The police claimed the arrests were for preventative action and that by removing the Pachucos, who they believed were the problem, the riots would cease. The media representation at the time of the riots played a large role in the overall view of the Mexican-American youth in Los Angeles. Local press feasted on the riots as a way to exploit the Pachucos. Newspapers portrayed the Pachucos as criminals, while the servicemen were portrayed as heroes who were helping to stop the Mexican crime wave. Further evidence of the discrimination within the media was found in a Los Angeles headline on June 7, 1943, which read, "Zoot suiters learn lesson in fights with servicemen." And that's this one down here. This headline is one of the most famous headlines throughout the riots due to its obvious favoritism for the servicemen and its resentment towards the Pachucos. The headline is so famous it is portrayed in numerous pieces of Chicano art, as we shall discuss later. The media and newspapers destroyed and tarnished the reputations of the Pachuco community and the entire Mexican and Mexican-American communities. However, not the entire Anglo community viewed the Pachucos negatively. In fact, First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt attempted to defend the Pachucos, saying, "The question goes deeper than just zoot suits. It is a racial protest. I have been worried for a long time about the Mexican racial situation. It is a problem with roots going a long way back, and we do not always face these problems as we should." Not many people agreed with the sentiments of Roosevelt, as seen by the Los Angeles Times response to the First Lady with a headline entitled, "Mrs. Roosevelt Blindly Stirs Race Discord," which appeared on June 18, 1943. The editorial accused Roosevelt of communist leanings and suggested that the Anglo society was not even willing to consider the possibility that the Pachucos were not the problem. The riots were out of control, and on June 7, 1943, the United States military moved into Los Angeles and called all servicemen out of the area, and the riots ceased. The Los Angeles City Council even issued an ordinance banning the wear of zoot suits, which passed on June 9, 1943. The social injustice and discrimination the Pachuco community faced prior to, during, and after the riots was enormous. The negative sentiments of the Anglo community for the Pachucos, as well as the prejudicial media representation of the riots and the Pachucos, dramatized the inequality and racism which existed in the Pachuco life. The need for a voice was apparent within the Mexican-American community. However, the Chicano community had no social, political, or economic representation. Thus, the Chicano community turned to art as a medium to express their struggles, pains, emotions, and experiences. Chicanos wanted to voice their views, opinions, and beliefs about their lives and their histories. Art, literature, poetry, and theater were mediums which enabled Chicanos to express themselves. Murals like the Great Wall of Los Angeles, poems like Louis and To a Dead Lowrider, and El Teatro Campesino are great examples of Pachucos and the Zoot Suit riots represented in art. A wonderful representation of Chicano murals is the Great Wall of Los Angeles, which depicts the important events and significant people of the Chicano and Los Angeles histories. This mural highlights the often forgotten history and diversity of Los Angeles. The Great Wall of Los Angeles, now over 25 years old, depicts previously neglected histories in minority Mexican-American cultures and communities in Los Angeles throughout the 1950s. The world's largest mural includes a segment expressing the horrific view of the Zoot Suit riots. This segment includes a Pachuco on the ground without any clothing on except for his underwear, while big black boots, obviously meant to be intended to be a police officer, tower over him. While the Pachuco is being harassed, there is a man getting out of his car stepping on a newspaper. The picture on the front of the newspaper includes the Los Angeles headline on June 7, 1943, Zoot Suiters Learn Lesson in Fights with Servicemen. This mural is significant because it incorporates the Zoot Suit riots, which was a major part of the Chicano culture and history, along with the media. The media was so damaging to the reputations of the Pachucos during this time that even today art is still being created to express the Zoot Suit riots and the horrible misrepresentation by the media. Other segments of the Great Wall of Los Angeles include deportation, where thousands of Mexican Americans were deported to Mexico after the stock market crash in 1929. A large white man's hand pushes Mexican immigrants into trains that would return them to Mexico. Notice that there are actually price tags on the Mexicans, symbolizing that basically they're just like cattle. The last segment of the Great Wall of Los Angeles is immigration, where men, women, and children from various nations go to live in Los Angeles. The flags represent their nations of birth. Another constructive and artistic expression for Chicanos through art includes poetry. Poetry was a way in which Chicanos were able to express their own feelings and emotions. The Pachucos, as well as the Zoot Suit riots, have been included in many different poems. Louis, by Jose Montoya. Montoya considered Pachucos to be the first Chicano freedom fighters of the Chicano movement. Jose Montoya attempted to infuse imagery and symbolism of the Pachuco into contemporary Chicano art and barrio life. Louis refers to the life of a Pachuco. Louis, with his sassy attitude, tailor-made drapes, also known as the Zoot Suit, and his cocky strength was intimidating to others. The very end of the poem describes Louis' death. His death was an insult. Because he didn't die in action, he wasn't killed by gangbangers nor by the enemy in Korea. He died alone in a rented room, perhaps like a Bogart movie. This is a sad ending to a strong Pachuco life. Another exceptional poem is To a Dead Lowrider by J.L. Navarro about a modern-day Pachuco. The main character, Tito, the leader of a gang, is the envy of the narrator as he explains, "It's a shame the way he died, but while he stood tall and proud, he bowed his head to no man at all." The poem portrays the life of Tito, a Pachuco gangster, and shows the strength, pride, and heroic features of modern-day Pachuco, as well as his difficult and challenging life. In the end, Tito dies tragically while fighting with a police officer. Both poems discuss the characteristics of the Pachuco, such as the Zoot Suit, as well as the strong, unique attitude of the Pachuco. Finally, in 1965, Luis Valdez, along with many farm workers of California, founded El Teatro Campesino, also known as the Farm Workers Theater. This type of theater can be staged in an open field with few props or sets. Scenes are meant to flow from one another with nothing more than a newspaper to indicate time. One of the most famous plays of El Teatro Campesino was written by Luis Valdez, Zoot Suit. Zoot Suit portrays the famous Sleepy Lagoon murder, the trial, and the riots as seen through the eyes of a Chicano. The play used 4 young Chicanos to represent the 17 Pachucos in the Sleepy Lagoon murder trial. The focus of Zoot Suit is to live and feel the events through the main character, Hank Reyna, who is meant to represent Hank Levas. El Pachuco, the alter ego of Reyna, in the play represents the identity of the Pachuco within Reyna, and that's El Pachuco, right in the middle. In the end, El Pachuco closes by saying, "A happy ending, but life ain't that way." The idea that a group of Pachucos can live happily ever after in a society that would put them through the most ridiculous acts of inequality and racism is unrealistic. The Chicano people needed a way to articulate their encounters of social discrimination and racism. Art became an outlet for artistic expression for the frustrations and struggles of the Chicano community. The Chicano people were living in a society that did not include them, did not represent them, and did not even care about their well-being. Using art gave the Chicano people a chance to speak, a chance to stand up for themselves and for their histories, and express what it was like to be a Chicano. With the continuous use of art, the Chicano community is bringing awareness and consciousness to the uneducated people as well as to their own. I would like to close by quoting Ana Castillo, one of the most famous Chicano writers, who said, "We are left with one final resolution. In our own predestined way, we are going forward. There is no going back." Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mandy.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for your help. I appreciate it. Did I seem nervous?
Just keep turning it off.
Oh, thank you.
As you can see by that notation, our students are right on. And